All right. So without any further ado, I'm privileged to introduce our speakers today, Debbie Silver. Debbie is an author, a speaker, and an award-winning educator herself. She's known for her passion for education, teaching, and really helping others, specifically teachers and educators. Debbie combines humor, storytelling, and research-based theory in her style that is so unique to her and loved by so many educators, to engage educators across the globe. And so without any more, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Debbie, who we're so excited to have here today.
Thank you guys for joining us. I know how busy you are, and thank you. Just want to say a word really quickly. There is a handout, and they're going to post it now, Melissa and Katie, in the chat box, and we'll do it again at the end. And then you'll also receive that with your certificate, because it's got a lot of really good stuff that we won't have time to really go deep into during the presentation. But I wanted you to know that most everything that you would like to have a copy of, my slides, all that, that's going to be available to you. So we're going to get started. And yes, I am an educator with many years experience. And one of the things that people ask constantly is, so Deb, you've been doing this, since the 70s. And have you noticed how children have changed? And my gut reaction to that is, I don't think kids have changed. I think the world has changed. But I think kids want what they've always wanted. And that is the undivided, focused attention of the adults in their lives. And if we look at our world today, where there are just so many things playing for that little piece, I think we're pulling away from it. So as we start to talk about effective feedback, let me just start with, I think the main thing that we can do, the most important thing we can do, is to actively listen and engage the kids, whether it's your biological children at home or your students at school. And when I do, training for new teachers, and I will tell them, okay, y'all are brand new, and this veteran's going to give you some advice that I didn't always follow, but let me just say this: when kids are present, you need to be fully present with them. And I'm not just talking about physically, I'm talking about emotionally, socially, cognitively, every way that you can be present. So that means when kids are in the room, then we don't need to be grading papers. We don't need to be on our personal devices. We don't need to be on social media or talking to another teacher. We need to be up, active, and engaged. And for most of us, that means, you might be with a small group, but for a lot of us that teach secondary, that means we're up, we're moving around, not playing gotcha, but just constantly engaging with kids. And I tell them, even if you look over their heads during a discussion and see that they're towing your car out of the parking lot, let it go. When you're with kids, focus with kids. Now, I know what a lot of y'all are thinking. Oh my gosh, she is a boomer. She doesn't understand about multitasking. I do understand about multitasking. Guys, it is a myth. Read any of the cognitive psychology you want to, and they will all tell you that you don't multitask. What you do is you multi-switch, which robs you of your effectiveness, it robs you of your efficiency, and it robs you of your joy. So we need to carve that time out. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at this. I mean, there were days when I would get so stretched, and I'm at the end of my ropes. And then here comes that student, Miss Silver, I really need to talk to you. I've got a problem. And I'm like, honey, I just need a moment of adult time. That's why I'm in this bathroom stall. Now, shut the door and let me finish my sandwich. No, I get it. I know that time is the most valuable commodity you have right now. But I am also reiterating when we're going to give feedback, because it comes directly, but it also comes from body language. It comes from the time we choose to spend, where we focus our attention. So I want to start with that. But that aside, I want to do a little dilemma with you guys. I want to get your input on this. And those of you who've read Dr. Carol Dweck's Mindset, the positive new psychology of success, you've seen this before because this is hers. But just to get the ball rolling, I want to set up a scenario. I'm going to give you 5 choices. You can type those in your chat box. and see what you would choose. And then toward the end, we're going to revisit this and see if maybe you have changed your mind, or maybe you would consider another alternative, or maybe you're just reinforced that, man, I got this. I knew I'd get this. So here's the story. Elizabeth is 9 years old, and she is ready for her first gymnastics meet. She is lanky and energetic, and she is just right for gymnastics, and she loves gymnastics. Of course, she's a little nervous about competing, but she's confident that she'll do well because she's really good. And she had even thought about the perfect place that she was going to put the ribbons she was going to win. All right, so we've got this picture. And all the little kids, at the gym, and her teacher, Elizabeth, you're so good. You're so talented. You've got so much going for you. But then when she actually gets there in the first event, the floor exercises, she does a good job. And that's fine. If you've been to a gymnastics meet, they put the scores up, and her scores were good. But the girls that came after her scored higher. And that happened in every event. She'd do really well, but then she'd get outscored. So it became evident then that she wasn't going to win any ribbons, and she had to go to the ceremony, and she got no ribbons, and she was devastated. She's just desolate and very, very diminished. And I need you to think about, as an adult advocate, and you can be that coach, or you could be the person at home, or you could be the friend, but as an adult, what do you say to her? Now, I'm going to give you 5 choices, and believe me, you're not going to like any of them. And these are from Dr. Dweck, but I want you to think about the one that would be most helpful for Elizabeth. So let's get something off the table right now. The point of effective feedback is to help a child get better, right? It is always to help a child get better. It's not to rationalize or excuse. It is to help the child get better. So as you're considering your choices, I want you to think about what would actually help Elizabeth get better. So here are your choices. All right, and get ready to put it in the chat. And you might want to wait till you see all 5 of them. But the first choice is, you tell her that you thought she was the best. Second choice, you tell her that she was robbed of a ribbon that was rightfully hers. Third choice, you reassure her that gymnastics is not that important. This is not the end of the world. Number 4, you tell her that she has the ability and she will surely win the next one. 5, tell her she didn't deserve to win. Okay, now I know a lot of you are thinking, could I combine those? Could I put some disclaimers on those? Just pick one of the numbers, leave it there, and then we're going to come back to this a little bit later. And this is not designed to be easy. This is designed to really push you and think about it. And we'll look at what Dr. Dweck has to say about that. But first, let's get into a little bit about, let's talk about positive, effective feedback and how we build students' agency, their self-efficacy. And when I was in the classroom, and if I let the kids choose where they wanted to sit, then normally the high flyers would choose to sit on the front row. But so would my concrete sequentials. These are the kids that do very well with doing exactly what the teacher asked them to do, and following through with directions. And they're very compliant. Not sure that's always what we want, but if you ask those kids, what does success look like? Because they've been on this cycle of success since they were little. And they would say it looks like this, with that arrow going on. And I had the gifted child in my home, and I'm sure he would have said that was what his life was. But his younger brother, the second in line, probably would have said, nope, this is what mine looks like. Kind of an Eeyore. And these kids, oh no, that's not going to work. Everything I try falls apart. Everybody's against me. And they have a very disconsolate view of life, and they don't want to try. So here's the first thing I think we need to do is we need to be really honest with students, and we need to say to them, this is what it really looks like, the one on the right. Learning is messy. Success is messy. Nobody has that straight shot. You know, that's for the movies, that's for Hollywood. Everybody that has achieved anything worthwhile has had to get down and wallow in it, done a total face plant, but also experienced failure. That is part of growth. So we probably need to stop talking about failure as such a horrible, permanent thing, but just say, oh, I messed that up. What did I learn from that? So when you're being effectively giving feedback with kids and they go, oh, I totally blew that whole thing, then our next question needs to be, okay, you did. What did you learn from that? Because as long as we're moving forward, then we can continue to build self-efficacy, which is when I wrote the first version of Fall Down 7 Times and went to the research to find out what was that, that was happening with this, not this generation, but maybe the millennials, okay? It just seemed to be a lot of somebody needs to help me, somebody needs to make sure I'm okay. And I didn't see that independent can-do spirit that I had seen in the students I taught. And come to find out, this started in California with the self-esteem movement. But honestly, when that report was written about what is self-esteem, and let's just be real clear about what I'm talking about. When I say self-esteem, it means comparing yourself to others. How do you feel when you look at what others have done? So I'm not really in favor of that term. I don't like it at all. But what they said, what it was misinterpreted to say was, okay, the research is clear here that if kids are going to feel good about themselves and they're looking around and everybody else has more, has better, has it easier, then it's never going to happen. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make everybody feel special. And so if you're given a trophy, who gets one? Everybody. And if you're giving out stickers, who gets a sticker? Everybody. And if the curriculum is too hard, what do? And I was literally told this, you dumb it down. Because if the kids make good grades, if they get the same accolades, they'll feel better about themselves and they'll do better. So how's that been working for us so far? Not worth a damn. So let's look at this, because what we have from that generation, and I taught them, and now their kids are in school, but what we have are some of the parents who want to come to school and fight the battles for their kids. They don't want them to overcome hardships. They don't want them to work through problems. They want to, we call them lawnmower parents or helicopter parents. They hover or they bulldoze their way. But it's like, my kid deserves to, is entitled to this and entitled to that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me let you look at Paula Ebert. Maybe you know a Paula Ebert in your life. Hang on, I'm going backwards here. Sorry, don't mean to make y'all sick at your stomach. How many of you know this parent? Oh, there we go. There's the lawnmower parent and the helicopter parents. All right, now here she is.
If Paula Ebert had her way, she would help her child.
Deoxyribonucleic acid. You know that.
With everything. But that kind of love is frowned upon.
Okay, so yeah. And I noticed in the chat, somebody said college professors are dealing with this. Yeah, one in your bibliography, I highly recommend the book, How to Raise an Adult by Judith Lithcott Haynes, who was a counselor at Stanford. And she talks about how these millennial parents were coming to college trying to lawnmower, helicopter their kids through college. So, when I was little, I loved the little book, The Little Engine That Could. And I think I can, which I think is a really good message. But this is what scares me, guys. Look at this slide. Is this what we're coming to? The little engine that is waiting for everything to be done for them? Push me. Well, Mom, I'm waiting. I don't think any of us want that. And, I always say to parents, they'll say, you're not motivating my child. I bet you've heard that. You're not motivating my child. Or this school isn't motivating my child. I need somebody to motivate my child. Let's be really clear about motivation. That is an intrinsic quality. And you can't motivate anybody. You can't just get them excited, just transfer your knowledge, your energy, your passion to them, and automatically through osmosis, they get it. It doesn't work like that. What we have to do is try to inspire our kids, to champion our kids, to challenge our kids, and also to empower our kids. And so this workshop talks a lot about how do you empower kids through your feedback, but always with the goal of helping them get better and do better the next time so that they're constantly growing. So let me show you what I mean by what really motivation is, student motivation. And I know that looks redundant because I said self, but I want everybody to understand, how do we get kids to do this for themselves? Because to me, that's the only way that makes sense. So here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about a goal that you've attained, recently enough that you still remember how you got there. Think about a goal that you attained that was really important to you. Just do that for a second. Get that in your mind. What did I do? What did I do? Okay, I got mine. And now I want you to think about what you had to do to make it happen. Did you have to do some things that were a little scary that you've never ever done before? Did you even do a couple of face plants along the way? And like, oh man, a couple of times, did you want to give up? Was it sometimes like 2 steps forward, 1 step back? And occasionally 1 step forward, 2 steps back? But you kept going. You kept going. You put your heart and your soul toward a goal that you focused on, and you made it happen. You did it. Now, do you remember how you felt the moment that you achieved that which heretofore you had not achieved? Was it something like this? Da, 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 da. And then was it something like this? What's next? Guys, the greatest way to enhance motivation is genuinely achieved, authentically achieved, hard-earned success. It doesn't come from checking boxes. It doesn't come from, marking it off the list. It comes from kids working, making an achievement, and then having a significant adult there to call their attention to it. And it's not about us. It's about them. And when people say, well, are you just saying kids, we need to make it rough for them? To some extent, because I love this quote from Franklin Delano Roosevelt: a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. So if we are getting kids to make these high scores on their standardized test, if we are, marking the boxes, checking the things off, and yet they get to college or get to their next level after high school and are unable to integrate the knowledge that they had, to use it in a new and novel way, that they are looking for the teacher to kind of set the path for them, then we really haven't done what we should do. So we have to really figure out, what is it? And I went back to DC and Ryan. Y'all remember them from self-determination theory way long time ago, but it's still relevant what they said. The first thing we know, and all teachers know this, kids need, hang on, I'm trying to find this. Well, that's weird. Let me go back and see. Oh, there we go. All right, so kids need autonomy, they need competence, and they need relatedness. So the autonomy, we all know, they need a voice, they need some choice. We talk about that throughout our books in Corwin, is let's give them some voice and choice. It doesn't mean you have a democracy that you vote on everything, because that's just silly. But it's just like teachers. We want a voice in what's happening at the school. Our students want a voice in what's happening with our curriculum and within the classroom. So that's very important. The competency is where I think we've kind of missed the mark. As we've gotten into the policy of just going, all right, you finished. Okay, that's all right. Check this off. Mark out the box. It's almost like it's not relevant. And so what we have to do is go back to say, what we're teaching kids is worthwhile. And to get genuinely earned competency means that you can use that knowledge in a new, novel way in a place outside of this particular classroom. But the kid knows, I can now do something I've never done before. or I am on my way to acquiring a skill that I didn't before have. So I'm really thinking that we need to do a better job of saying to kids, rather than who was the first, who made 100, who didn't have to try, who just breezed through this assignment, instead of giving accolades for that, which I don't think those deserve accolades, I think we ought to say, who learned something today you didn't know before, or who's on your way to acquiring a skill that you didn't have before. Maybe our exit questions ought to be more about how did you grow today? What do you know now that you didn't know? Than do you know the answer to? All right. And I mean, you can have some of both, but it's all about progress. So we're not talking about self-esteem, because that, in my opinion, means you're looking at, well, I didn't do as well as Johnny, or I didn't do as well as Sidonia, or I didn't do whatever. And I'm looking more for, how did you do in comparison to yourself? Now, I want to be really honest about this. In self-determination theory, in their beginning research, DC and Ryan, when they talked about relatedness, we're actually talking about relating curriculum to the life of the child, which we know is relevant and important. But lately, a lot of what they're saying is they need a relationship. They need a relationship with the person who is teaching them. And I believe that. I'm seeing in a lot of your posts and a lot of things people are saying relationships before pedagogy. And I think relationships should be a part of pedagogy. I think kids will listen to teachers that they like and respect. And people always say, well, how do you make that happen? Easy answer: like and respect them first. And then when they believe you're authentic, when you're genuine and you're trying to help them, then you can start making progress. So let's don't even say self-esteem. All right, let's say self-efficacy. And y'all are all familiar with this, but this came from Bandura, who said self-efficacy is tied to the belief that you have control, that you are able to steer your own course, which kids that are helpless don't believe that. They think everything happens to them and against them. So when we are giving kids feedback, Bandura suggests that we only talk about things over which they have control. Now, this, a lot of you know this, but this came as kind of a gobsmack to me. He said, stop telling kids they're smart, stop telling them they're talented, start telling them they're pretty, they're athletically gifted, they have this bonus, something nobody else has. He said, that's going to create kids who either feel entitled, or it can conversely make them feel helpless. But when we give our feedback on things they can't control, that's their choices, their efforts, that's the two he emphasized, but you can also talk about their strategy, their kindness, their choice to include somebody. All of those things a kid can control. So what his research clearly says is that when students have a sense of self-efficacy, they will try harder, they will try longer, they will attempt bigger obstacles. And when they do that total face plant, they're more likely to get back up more quickly and start back. So yeah, effective feedback is huge. And you can start in a lot of ways. But one of them is just to say to kids when they're going, oh, the reason I failed was because, and we can help them just legitimize that and say, all right, which of those factors influence that influence your grade can you control? You can control, because the ones you can't control, you need to just get rid of that. All right, that may always be. I have a son that has dyslexia, and he's always going to have dyslexia, but we can't use that as an excuse. It's always going to be harder for Andy, but yet he knows that he has certain ways, certain skills, certain things he can do to make it work for him. So that's not part of the conversation. The conversation is, how can we make this work for you? We're talking about a kid who was told in the 7th grade that he would never graduate from high school and he would always have to live in assisted care. Yeah, how about that? And this is a young man who now has 2 master's degrees, is a certified counselor for the state of Texas, and works helping students in Austin Community College system every day. One of the most successful people I know. But we had to get through all that, what I can't control, and figure out what I can control. So the opposite of self-efficacy is learned helplessness. And to me, this is cyclical. It is, I can't, so I won't, so I quit, so I fail, so I can't, so I won't, so I quit, so I fail. And you all know these kids. Why do I even try? She doesn't even like me. The whole world's against me, you know, and I'm just, it really hurts to hear that. But here's the reason that they do. Uncontrollable bad offense are coupled with a perceived lack of control, and that leads to a generalized helpless behavior. I think we're seeing it now more because of COVID and because of our divisive political front right now. People are feeling very helpless. People are feeling frustrated. They're feeling angry. They have lots of these negative emotions. And it's kind of like, it's all happening to me. It's all happening to me. And when somebody internalizes that, your feedback is really not going to help them at all because they're not interested. Honestly, it's like, no, I don't care what you have to say. That's, you know, that nothing would help me. It's dismal. It's awful. And so we ask ourselves, well, how did they get that way? Well, I'm not sure what kind of screen you have, but hopefully you can see there's a very skinny little chain there holding that elephant to a tiny tree sapling. Okay. And obviously the elephant wants to go because, you know, that's what they do. They want to go back to the wild and they don't like to be held captive, but it's like he's stopped. Now, everybody is watching that's looking at this knows that elephant has got to be strong enough to just pop that chain, even pull that tree up out of by its roots and keep going. But why doesn't he? Why doesn't he? Just go. It's so easy to see, just go. And you know why? Because when he was a tiny little elephant and they put that same chain around him and maybe even chained him to the same tree, he really wasn't able to break free. He tried and he tried, but it didn't work. So he internalized this behavior, this belief that, oh, nothing I do works. So he stopped trying. A lot of y'all are familiar with the learned helplessness concept, which basically came from Seligman and Meyer in 1967. They did a study that they would not get to do now because PETA would not allow it. But while they were at the University of Pennsylvania, these two graduate students decided they were going to try to induce certain behaviors in dogs. So they got their control group and then they got their experimental group. And with the control group of dogs, they brought them in to a lab and one at a time, they put them into a box that had a coil at the bottom that shocked them. And it hurt. Now, it didn't kill them, but it hurt. And with the control group, when the dogs jumped around because it was hurting, they inadvertently hit a lever, which stopped the shock. So the dogs figured out, oh, okay, I've got control over this. I can do this. And they solidified that behavior and that learning in them. But group B dogs, they put them in a box, which was exactly the same, except it had no lever. And so those dogs got shocked arbitrarily, capriciously. They never knew when it was going to happen. They never knew what it was going to stop, and completely were internalized that belief that I'm getting hurt, but I don't know what I can do about it. There's nothing I can do. And then the experiment was they brought them into the lab where you see this double shock box, and one at a time, the groups from dog A were put on the shock side. And when they started getting shocked, the dogs immediately looked around for a lever. And when they discovered there was no lever, then they started looking for another way to escape. And almost every one of them figured out, oh, just hop over this low little divider here and I can get on the not shock side. Good. But then when they brought in group B and started shocking them, what do you think they did? You know what they did. They lay down on the coils that were shocking them. They cried, they moaned, they howled. They made no attempt to try to get away. And they were that close. Look at it. All they did, hop over. Now, I love dogs, and I really hate that story. But I'm really glad that they did this study, because what they said was, this is learned helplessness. And the good news is, if you learn it, you can unlearn it. So let's talk about our feedback that helps kids unlearn this helplessness. So how do we unlearn the uncontrolled behavior leads to generalized helpless behavior? What do we do about that? Oh, I love this one, the horse. Same thing. Good visual on that. Yep. Sometimes think, what's holding you back. Because sometimes it is all in your head. And that's even with teachers, right? But how do we combat it? Okay, first of all, we empower kids with control. So we go back to as we give feedback, we're talking about what choice did you make? What made you decide to do that? Is that something you could do differently next time? It really shows that you stretched hard. Did you work? And it's not just about how hard do you work, because kids have to work smart. And that's what we're here for, is to say, no, I believe you. I know you're working your head off, but you're not maximizing your study time. Let's try another venue. Let's go at this another way. But we give kids the control back. And so instead of just going, all right, you made 82% on this paper, we work with them and say, you might want to think about these 4 examples another way and give that another shot. So it's a constant growth process. It's not just, this is final, this goes in the grade book, and we're done with this unit, and you never have to think about it again, because that's not going to work. And then we help them cultivate mastery, because just like when you felt that da, 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 when you did what you did, I want that for every kid. Because when a kid feels they have mastered something that was hard, it inspires them and they are ready for the next challenge. And that's what our effective feedback is to do. We also teach reframing, and we talk a lot about this in a book Corwin book that I wrote with Deidre Stafford called Teaching Kids to Thrive, and it's talking about SEL skills. And all of my counselors out there are familiar with the term reframing, and I'm not going to go into it deeply now, but it's helping kids look at things a different way. So when they're telling you, oh, everybody's against me, they were all talking about me, they didn't choose me for the team, it's our job to say, okay, I could see how you would think that, but is there another way you could look at that? Could there be another reason that you were not chosen at this particular time? Or just helping them see, it's not permanent, it's not pervasive, it's not the rest of their lives. It's just something that happened now. It's just an event. So we keep moving forward. So helping them combat learned helplessness. Well, shoot, sorry, guys. All right, help them realize that that they can control, what they can control and what they can't control, and help them practice making good decisions. Talk frequently about the value of practice with your feedback and acknowledging incremental success, and give them feedback that helps them get better and helps them recognize their growth. Be patient. I know a lot of times, I've heard teachers say things like, you didn't have this in the 4th grade, you're just now getting there. And I'm thinking, oh, that is diminishing your learner. And I was taught this by a phenomenal teacher, and I try to share it every chance I get. But I was very upset. I was an adult learner trying to learn computers, and I happened to get in a class that was way over my head, advanced. And I've never felt so useless and helpless in my life. And I was sitting there crying. And Jerry Ante, my teacher, came over and said, why are you crying? And I said, because I can't do this. I said, I'm so stupid. I said, I don't even need to be in here. This is an embarrassment. I'm just going to quit. He said, why would you quit? I said, because I don't know any of this stuff. He said, well, Deb, it occurs to me that you've never had a reason to know it before now. So why would you? But now I'm going to give you a reason and you'll learn it. So let's go. Wow. So yeah, let's do that. Let's say when a kid goes, well, everybody else, hey, we're talking to you. This is not self-esteem. This is self-efficacy. It's okay that you didn't know that before now, but now you will know. And I love that, Carol Dweck says all the time, the power of yet. You don't know it yet. I don't even know where to start. You don't know yet. Okay, back up. But I think we need to do a better job of letting kids know how far they've come along the path. And it's going to be different. Some of our high flyers are going to zip right on up, but we got to keep raising that bar. And then our strugglers, it does take more patience. It's not as much fun sometimes, but we have to give them genuine, authentic feedback that helps them get better. Not like this, right? This is one of the mistakes that I made as a classroom teacher, because I always want people to feel better. I went over the top with my effusive praise, and I use words like awesome, amazing, you just knocked my socks off. Okay, and I thought that was helpful. But now what I know is basically all I was affirming was that they made me happy. So it's about me, it's not about them. And this is typical, all right? So let's say you know a small child who's going to jump in the pool for the first time. This child is a boy on his own. And they come to you because they're nervous, and they're going to find you, and they're going to say something, and you know what they're going to say. Watch this. Goes back to what I said. So involved with what the adults around them are, that they have their attention. So watch this. Well, let's say the kid jumps off the edge of the pool. Now here's Debbie, way too effusive. Oh my God, look at my little Michael Phelps there. He's going to be, did y'all see that? Our next Olympiad. This is so great. Do it again. We're going to video it. We're going to send it to grandma. Tell you what, for a reward on the way home, I'm going to get you an ice cream cone. We're going to get you a shirt. We're going to, some of y'all are going, no, Deb, calm down. Exactly. Because guys, if I go all over crazy without even any real feedback, the only thing this child learned is I can really make people happy by jumping off the edge of the pool. Now that's cool when you're 5 years old, but when you're 35 and you're standing there going, hey y'all, watch this. It's not that cool anymore. So maybe the better idea is to say, wow, that took a lot of courage. Try it a couple more times, and then let's add to it. Let's see if you can go in head first. And then a little bit later, let's see if you can go in with your arms over your head. Or even later, let's see if you can go in and not break the water. But we just keep raising the bar so that they are constantly moving forward. You see, if we do too much praise, and I'm so guilty of this, I will just tell you with my students and with my 5 sons, way too much praise. But this is what happens. First of all, we lower the bar. We don't ask them to go any further because why should they? They've got all this appellation, stickers, praise right now. So why go any further? We do give them a feeling of entitlement. And I think that's part of our problem today is kids have been so overpraised. Guys, it's to the point of ridiculous. I do most of my anthropological studies at Walmart, and I watch these parents just go, oh, wow, that's amazing. Did you see this? It's like, oh, look at you, you breathed in. Oh, look, you exhaled. And every time a kid does something, it's like, what do I get? What do I get? No, I think we've got to get better, a little bit more clear about what it is we're trying to praise and how much we're trying to praise. Because if we overpraise, then they may not think they're worthy at all. They may think, oh, they think I'm better than I am, and I'm not really that good. And that leads to the learned helplessness. This is something that happened at a gymnastics meet, actually. My granddaughter was in the meet, and she won a bunch of awards. And it was just, I'm sitting there going, oh, please let her lose something so she could learn from that. But her maternal grandfather, and I know he didn't mean it, but what he said was, Olivia, Grandpa's so proud of you when you win. And I'm like, because you guys know what I know. When you say that, then the converse of that is, I'm not proud of you when you don't win. So, and I know what he meant. I just think we really have to be careful with our words. And we'll come back to that when we talk about Elizabeth's dilemma. You also create praise junkies, and you probably have these kids. I know I did. Did I do good? Do you like it? Is it okay? 2 young girls were talking one time, and one said, I wrote this song, and I wonder if it's any good. And this is middle school. And her friend said, well, I don't know. Go ask Miss Pace. I was Miss Pace then. And her friend said, oh, you can't ask her. She likes everything. And there was a time I would have thought, well, that's a good thing. But now I realize I had undermined my own credibility, and that's probably not the best. When we overpraise, then sometimes kids are afraid. They get caught up in the I want to be the best. I want to get all these accolades. So they won't try things that are new. They get that fixed mindset that Dr. Dweck talks about. It decreases intrinsic motivation. And I'm sure you can think of other things. I'm glancing at the messages here, and yeah, it's not a good thing. And, I had to learn that because I really thought in all good faith, I was trying to build my kids. But that feedback wasn't as effective as me just paying attention and being more specific. And I'll get to that in a second. Hang on. I think that one of the greatest things that we can do to improve feedback and self-efficacy is to make sure that we go back to Lev Vygotsky, almost 200 years ago that he came up with this, but to make sure that our learners are working within the zone of proximal development where they can learn as we scaffold for them, but they can always see that they're almost there. If it's too easy in that purple zone there, they can work unassisted, they don't need any help. It becomes redundant, it becomes boring, it becomes non-motivating. And if it's out of their reach so far, like the green one, then they aren't going to try. You wouldn't, I wouldn't. It's like, well, there's no way I can do that. But the greatest gift we can give is design tasks that they have a background for, they're almost there, and then stretch. Just keep stretching. And it's not going to be the same for every kid. And that's what makes our job so interesting, is that, wow, what do you do when you have people at different levels? But I love this analogy. Y'all have seen this probably on the web, but I love it. If you can do it in small steps, that's so much more beneficial than to look at this kid, I can't reach the rung. And in your handout, it's not on this, but I have several things to help with scaffolding, just some things I've gleaned along the way. And I also have a list of things to help your struggling learners that have learned helplessness. So you're going to get that, and we're going to post that at the end of this session. And it's also going to come to you with your certificate. But this is what I say to kids when they say, but that's just too hard. I'm like, everything is hard before it gets easy. And I think we need to say more of that to kids. In my book, I give this example of, I've got a little boy that is drawing. The teacher has assigned everybody a picture to draw, and she's walking around the room, and we'll just make it be me. She's walking around the room, and she spots this kid who has done a magnificent job. And so she is going to get feedback, right? So just, how do you feel about this? She walks over and went, Vincent, oh my gosh, that is like the best picture I've ever seen. Oh my God, that is fantastic. How did you, oh, I know how you did it. Yeah, your mom's an artist. Oh boy, you got the gene. You are so lucky. Oh, and your dad teaches art at the junior college. So you got, your professor right there at your house. That is amazing. Let me tell you what, Vincent, I cannot draw. I just suck. So from now on, will you be the class artist? And if I need something drawn, would you draw that for me? That is so fantastic. And then I look at the rest of the class and say, now, who else would like to show your work? Anyone? Anyone? Of course not. Guys, they just start rolling it in. What we've just said to the kids, if you go back and listen to what I said, is if you want to be successful at this, you have to have inherited the genetic predisposition for art. You need a parent that teaches the art. Those are two horrible things. So now everybody that doesn't have those two things, which is every other kid in the classroom, is going to wad up their paper and throw it in the trash. But I also want you to think about what I've done to Vincent. You see, first I've diminished his role in this by saying, oh, you just inherited this. Oh, your dad's doing it, showing you this. Then the other thing I've done is I've put all the spotlight on him and said, you're the class artist. So now I've robbed him of the joy of art because I've set him up. So every time we do an assignment, he needs to be the best. It needs to look better than everybody else's because I've put that on it. And so if we try a different median, if we try a different style, he's likely to not just to say, no, let me go back to what I know where I can be number one. But the worst thing I just did was my role modeling. What was my answer to, because I can't draw? I said this in front of all the kids, because I can't draw, what should I do? And I said out loud, I'll get Vincent to do it for me. Guys, that is modeling helplessness. That is modeling entitlement. And I've really had to watch my feedback and not say things like that to kids. Better, because I'll say things like, well, I can't sing. And if y'all don't get quiet, I'm going to sing. But I don't need to say to kids, I'm not a singer. I need to say, I'm not a singer yet. And if I really wanted to be a singer, and I get the kids to tell me, what steps would I take? How could I get better? I may not ever, be on Broadway, but how could I definitely get better? Because that's the thing about feedback, guys. I'm not telling kids things so they can be the best, the brightest, the first. I don't even want to go there. I want to say, I don't care what it is. If you monitor your effort and your choices, you can get better at anything. Now, I'm not promising you're going to be exactly what you want to be. You may not be Michael Jordan. You may not be win the American Idol, but you're going to get better than when you started. And we know that's true. Somebody was asking about Dr. Dweck. So let's go back to that. Dr. Dweck, when she wrote her implementation theory, was she started out as an attribution theorist. So they were asking people, to what do you attribute your success or your lack of success? And they got all these anecdotal answers, all hundreds of thousands. They pulled them together. And generally, when people tell you if they're successful or they're not successful, they're going to attribute it to one of these four things: task difficulty, luck, innate ability or talent, or effort. Now, guys, look at that, because this is kind of the linchpin idea of this entire presentation. If we are letting kids explain, or if we're rationalizing, or however we're, making the reason for why they were or were not successful, one of those is very different than the other three. Which one? Yep. You see, task control, task difficulty, luck, and innate ability, those are givens. You have no control over that. And when kids tell you, I was just lucky, or we need to really get in there and do the feedback going, I've always found the harder you work, the better your luck gets, because as several of y'all said, it's the effort. And we really, really need to emphasize that with kids. And that doesn't mean you didn't work hard. Sometimes we have to say, I believe you. I believe you studied for an hour for this test. So let's re-examine what you're doing and see if we can make that a little more productive. And John Hattie gives this quote, which I love, which I'm not going to read to you because you guys all know how to read, but it's absolutely the foundation of giving them enough information to do what it is they need to do. And that builds those positive relationships. It builds our culture in our classroom and our climate. So let's look at just briefly, instead of giving that global reaction that I told you I was guilty of doing, good job, awesome, you're number one. We really need to concentrate on being specific to the accomplishment. So it'd be something like, you finished the exercise on time with 90% accuracy. Okay, just no emotion in it, just that's what you did. Your project met the highest standards on 3 of the 5 criteria on the rubric. You did the assignment every day this week without having to be reminded. So we're giving them concrete evidence to back up, the positive response. But that's more helpful than, oh, you made me so happy. You put this smile on my face. All right, ineffective shows a bland uniformity that's like a conditioned response. Okay, good enough, fine. All right, we're done now. Okay, whatever. And I know I've done that when I was really tired. It's like, look, I did this. I'm okay, that's great. Put it on the shelf. Blah, blah, blah. Nope. What we have to do is pay attention, use our spontaneity, our variety, and other signals that give credibility and suggest that we are paying attention. The details you included in your theme made me feel like I was right there. The way you played that ball showed some quick thinking. That example you gave was one I would never thought of, and it gave me something to think about. Okay, ineffective, and I want to go back to the self-esteem, self-efficacy thing. Let's stop pitting kids against each other, and let's get them more about their own line of development. Instead of, can you make that a little more like Jan's? Or you're not getting the beta club with that kind of work. Or, well, you're not in my top 5 yet. How about things like, do you realize that you just exceeded your personal best record? Show me how you solved that difficult problem. Let's take a look at the progress you've made these past few days. And guys, all of these are in the handout. So if you're not getting it, don't worry about it. You can go back to it. Or it gives no information at all. Okay, I see you're done. Don't worry, you're fine. Nope, we need to give them specific evidence that builds their competence and in the value of their accomplishment. That paper clearly demonstrates that you attained knowledge of this concept. That's something to be proud of. In your group today, I noticed it was you who smoothed over the argument and got things back on track. It seems like you're the one that everyone turns to with their computer problems. Thanks for sharing your skills with your classmates. So here's the deal. Effective feedback teaches that failure is how we learn. It is always given to help the learner get better, and it does not excuse nor rationalize. It focuses on what the learner can control, their choices, their effort, their determination. It is given in a calm, patient manner. All right, I had planned to play a Monty Selby song for you at this point, but we're kind of running short on time. So it had to do with self-fulfilling prophecy. And in your handout, you're going to see where I talked about, first I got to tell you this. This is absolutely amazing. This is something I read about when I was researching for the new edition of the book. And they did this study with high school English teachers. And they had the teachers grade the papers the way they normally would, but then randomly they went in and added one sentence and it was just random. And that one sentence went out along with the other things that the teacher had to say to the students. And what they found out was that the short message made a huge difference, that even a year later, the kids who had received that one message were trying harder, longer, and achieving more. I know you're saying, so Deb, what was that statement that had that much power? It was, I'm giving you this feedback because I believe in you. Wow. Now, you couldn't just put that on everybody's paper and expect everybody to, because it would just lose its meaning. But in different ways, you could say that. But how important is it to say, the reason I'm telling you this is because I believe in all my heart, there's more there. And I think you know it too. So let's give it a shot. So just very quickly, and I've covered this in my book, but remember that kids are always watching, they're always listening, and it's not always what you say are right to kids. They hear what you say behind their backs. They hear what you say to another teacher. They hear what you say, watch where you stand. They watch your eyes. They watch all of that. It's all extremely important. When Rosenthal and Jacobs did the self-fulfilling prophecy, and they told teachers that these kids were going to be smarter than the other kids, and then they were, and then they said, what, explain that? And you can read this later, but I want you to go to number 4, because they were saying, why did those kids do better when it was actually a random selection? Just because the teachers thought that those kids were smarter. And look at number 4. The level of detailed feedback about performance was different. Teachers gave the perceived bloomers more informative feedback to help them get better. So perhaps that we need to make sure that we are giving adequate, effective feedback to all our learners. I'm going to skip Monty's song, sorry. And very quickly just tell you what Dweck says is the answer to this. She said, it is not number 1 because it's disingenuous. You saw her perform, you saw her get outperformed, and if you say, I thought you were the best, she's either going to think you're lying to her or you don't know squat about gymnastics. All right. I've never had an educator pick the second one, but I've had parents pick the second one, and we don't want to do that. But what that does is it puts the burden on somebody else. You did a good job, but they didn't acknowledge it. So you're teaching them to be helpless. Reassure that gymnastics is not that important. So what are we saying? When it gets tough, just quit. Go find something else. That's not a message I want to give kids. Most of you, I noticed, put number 4. She has the ability and she will surely win the next one. Dweck says that is the worst possible answer. Okay, let me tell you why. It's not because of the surely part that throws people off. It's because you are praising her on her ability, something that she cannot control. And if you do that, then she's going to become entitled. And then when she does reach a level, where she's no longer winning, she'll be helpless. Yeah. Dweck says the best answer is tell her she didn't deserve to win. And could I just add, yet? And then we have a conversation with her about how do you plan to get better? If you're going to continue to compete and you're interested in this, how will you get better? All right. Questions really quick. Do we have a couple? Katie, something I need to do?
I think that we have answered all the questions kind of along the way. But here's one that just came in. How can you not work on ability?
Well, you do. And y'all, I don't want to, my first book, Drumming to the Beat of Different Marchers, I do talk about predispositional leanings that are true. And I think, acknowledge that. You don't disavow the fact that the kid has this natural bent, but we don't focus on it. We don't just make that their claim to fame. What we say is, well, this is obviously really, easy for you. So what you're going to want to do, how do you plan to get better? Okay, you're ahead of everybody in the class. So what can you do? Because you deserve an opportunity to learn something too. So let's plan that for you. Does that make sense? I got a yes. Okay. This is on the handout, all of this, but if you need to contact me, here's all my social media and my webpage and my email page. But this is what I do. I help teachers. And please do not contact me and go, Deb, I'm sorry to bother you, but you're not bothering me. This is my joy. This is what I love to do. So don't hesitate to write, to reach out, to let me know how I can help you. And one more time, ladies, can we put the handout, post it so anybody that didn't get the handout?
Yep, it looks like it just went to everyone right there. And it will also go in the email that we'll send in the next day or so.
Great. Y'all, thank you so much for coming. I know how busy you are, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie.